listening to. So
This meeting is being recorded.
it's funny because when I hit record, I can hear your computer saying it to you, and it's like this echo. Uh, anyway, I was just telling Jasper, this is for Melina. Hi, Melina. Hope all is well. You're only going to have grammar this week. I'm starting with that because this lesson today is pretty deep and there's a lot to it. So just know that your homework will only be grammar so you can relax and soak it in. All right, so we'll start with grammar for the first lesson today. We're on page 109. 109. Okay. We're talking about the who, which clause, and you guys are really familiar with that because you use that a lot in your writing. But there's another element to this that you're going to learn today, which is interesting. And actually, you pretty much use this with your speaking and writing, but this puts it into words for you. So the who, which clause you've learned. The who, which clause is a dependent clause that begins with the word who or which and follows the noun it describes. The pronoun who has three forms: who, whom, and whose. The pronoun who is subjective case pronoun. The function, and that functions as a subject. So we already know that when we mark it in our grammar book, we already know usually that's the subject of the clause. The who, when the subject of a who clause is who. So in this example here, Dorinda read to Frederick, who listened eagerly. The clause is who listened eagerly. The subject is who, and then listened is the verb. The who, which clause describes Frederick. The noun it follows. He listened eagerly. The subject of the who clause is who. Okay, now we have the pronoun whom is an objective case pronoun that functions as an object. Use whom when the subject of who clause is not who. Okay, so here we have Dorinda read to Frederick, whom she initially disliked. The who, which clause describes Frederick, the noun that it follows. So it's describing Frederick. We still use that the same, but she initially disliked him. So that's what that's explaining there. She initially disliked him. So you could replace whom with the word him, and then it would make sense. It still it's the subject of the who clause is she, beginning the clause with whom. Okay, so the subject is she because she initially disliked him, which is Frederick. So it does make sense, trust me, the more we go through this. Okay, so the pronoun whose is a possessive case pronoun that shows ownership. Use whose when the first word of either who or a which clause functions as an adjective. Dorinda read to Frederick, whose humor made her laugh. The who, which clause describes Frederick, the noun it follows. His humor made her laugh. Whose humor? So whose is Frederick's humor. So that's how you know it functions as an adjective, because you can ask that question, whose humor? Frederick's. The first word of the clause functions as an adjective. Begin the clause with whose. All right, and there's more practice on the back page of this, but it says place parentheses around the who, which clause. You're still going to do that. You're still going to write WW above the word who, whom, or whose. So more than just who or which this time. Now we're looking for who, whom, or whose. Write the V above each verb and S above each subject. Place a line through the incorrect pronoun and write the correct word above it. Use who when the subject of the who clause is who. Use whom when the subject of the who clause is not who. Use whose when the first word functions as an adjective. So we're focusing today on who, whom, and whose. They're all clauses, but those three words take different functions in the clause. And there's an extra note down here, the homophone. You already know this, it's pretty easy. Whose and whose. Obviously, the one with the apostrophe is the contraction who is.
Yeah.
And then WHOSE is the pronoun that functions as an adjective. So you guys already know that. Okay, so on the back of this page, on page 110, we're going to do some practice together. And I'm hoping that this page will kind of bring it all together for you. It's got a little chart on the top. Whoops, whoa, trying to get it. There we go. This is back from week 12. We talked about pronouns. We had that big grid that talked about different pronouns. So this is just a section from that grid. So basically, pronouns have three cases: subjective, objective, and possessive. Here's the portion of that chart. So you've got the three sections or the three cases: subjective, objective, and possessive. And then you've got the job or function is the subject for subjective, that helps, object for objective, and then possessive is the adjective. So those are the three functions of those three cases of pronouns. And then they give you the words down below. For the subjective case, it's he or who in the clause, who, which is what you're already familiar with. These are the two new ones. Or it could be objective if you can use him in place of whom, or possessive, his in place of whose. I do want you to add, because we do have Dorinda in our story. So, and that's a girl, obviously. So right here, I want you to put in she, just put a note in here for yourself, and then her, and then hers. They just have the male pronoun in there for you, but that kind of helps because we will be talking about Dorinda too. So, okay. The pronoun he, you know, and anytime it says he, it's just focusing on he. You could say she. Has three forms: he, him, his. Use he when the pronoun functions as a subject. It's already listed here. Him when the pronoun functions as an object. And then his when the pronoun functions as an adjective in order to show ownership. So like I said, you already do this. So if you ask, you know, if it says his gifts and you say whose gifts, his is the possessive pronoun or adjective. So you'll ask yourself some questions here. So basically it says the pronoun who has three forms: who, whom, and whose, which we've been talking about. Use who when the pronoun functions as a subject, listed here under subject. Use whom when it functions as an object, under object. And then whose when the pronoun functions as adjective in order to show ownership, so his or hers. All right, so this practice down here, read each sentence. Should the dependent clause begin with who, whom, or whose? So go ahead and underline those. Those are the three words you're going to choose here, and then write the correct word in the blank. And honestly, the easiest way to do this is to try each one, and you can tell when you hear it which one makes the most sense. And then we can explain a little bit if it's subjective, objective, or possessive. You know, you can figure that out as you go. So obviously, I'll just do the first one. Dorinda, blank situation, was distressing, valued the library's distractions. So obviously, if you try different ones, like Dorinda who situation, that doesn't make sense. Dorinda whom situation doesn't make sense, but whose, Dorinda whose situation was distressing, valued the library's distractions. Now, the book tells you to do all these little tricks and find the verb and then look for the subject and decide if it's possessive or if it's objective or whatever. But really, the easiest way is to see which one fits. So that one obviously would be whom, which makes it, I'm sorry, it is not whom. Hello, it's whose. Hope you didn't write that in pen. whose, which would make it a possessive case pronoun or an adjective. So it's referring to Dorinda's situation was distressing, whose situation was distressing. And you can also say her situation was distressing. Let's see, let me look at that again. So the book describes it as this. If the first word of the who clause shows ownership, that's what it's doing, right? It's an adjective because it's showing ownership. Her situation, whose situation? It's Dorinda's situation. I think we might need to put like parentheses around the S up here because it could just be her. That's what I was tripping on because it really is her situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm kind of going fast right here, but does this make sense so far, Jasper?
Yes.
Pretty much. Okay. Let me zoom in a little so you can see that better. There we go. Go ahead and just read the next one, and then we'll talk about which one would fit in that.
Frederick blank Dorinda accompanied had a particular book in mind. Is it whom?
Try it with whom, see how it sounds.
Frederick, whom Dorinda accompanied, had a particular book in mind.
Yeah. And so that one sounds the best. That's the easiest way to determine which one. And then whom can be replaced with him or her. So basically, Dorinda accompanied him. That's how you would justify that, because now it is an object of the sentence. Dorinda accompanied him. Okay, try the next one.
Frederick blank wanted to teach Dorinda found the right book. And I put who.
Yeah, who. Good. So that would be more of the subject because you can replace it with he in this chart here because that's where the who is. See that? He wanted to teach Dorinda. So it kind of, it goes both ways. So he wanted to teach Dorinda. Back up here, Dorinda accompanied him. So it kind of just depends on which pronoun you can fit in there and which direction it goes, basically. But like I said, the easiest way to do this is just to try. It's either going to be who, whom, or whose to try each one. So if you can see it ahead of time, go ahead and just read it with the correct case pronoun in there.
The main character, blank name, was Scarlet, fancied extravagant parties. I put whose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Whose name was Scarlet. That's good. You can keep going.
Dorinda admired Scarlet, whose sunny personality won her many friends.
Yep, good.
Scarlet, whom Dorinda related to, planned a lavish party for her friends.
Yep.
These last two I think are right, but I'm not completely sure.
Okay.
The friends who accepted the invitation admired the swan centerpiece.
That's correct. Who? Good.
Scarlet's puppy, who she spoiled, ate a cupcake.
Okay, that's close. That was a tricky one because oops, let me see if I can get it on my whom is actually the correct one there.
Okay.
Whom. And the way we can tell that is it becomes the object. She spoiled the puppy, right? So Scarlett's puppy whom she spoiled. Ate a cupcake. Yeah, that was probably the only tricky one, because most of them obviously made more sense with those specific words in there. So the more you practice this, the more it'll begin to make sense to you. This little chart will help. So I'm just going to draw an arrow back to whom. So she spoiled, and we'll say the puppy's a him. You know, that's one way you can tell is if she, oh, can you see that? Here, let's move that over a little bit. She spoiled him. That's another trick you can do to check this chart, see what pronoun you can replace with him or who, I mean, a who or whom or whose, and see if you can. I'm having trouble with my camera here. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. Do you need me to explain it a little bit better, or are you good, Jasper?
I think I got it.
You got it? Okay, good. All right, so your homework will be then the next 4 pages. From now on, you will be, let's just peek at this page 111. You're going to see the who clause because that's easy to identify. But then you're going to change it depending on how it fits in the sentence. So for this one, the frog who she detested would actually be whom, because the pronoun to replace that could be him or her. So just like I drew that little arrow on that last example, she detested him. So this should be whom right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I cross it out and write whom over it.
Yes, but you still would mark it with parentheses like you've been doing for your who clause. So that would be the clause is who she detested. We're still going to label it with W/W, but who should be whom. Because now you have the subject is she and detested. So because the subject is she, the whom is referring back to the frog in that sentence.
All right.
Yeah. Let's just take a peek at the next page too. We'll just look at the who clauses. Let's look at page 112. Oops. The who clause, it says whose feeble hands were struggling to draw water from the deep well. That's the whole clause. It's a long one. We know that's WW, that's the who which clause, but whose, this one is incorrect spelling because that is who is feeble. So obviously we just cross that out and put whose feeble hands were struggling. That one was easier. So basically that's how you'll label it as you go through the homework. Okay. I think you'll get it. It's just kind of hard to explain it into words because,
Yeah.
you know, plugging in those other pronouns and trying to decide if it's possessive or objective and all that. But I think you'll get it. All right. Go back to that, you know, during your homework pages, that I think this chart will help you that we just talked about here on page 110. If that will be a reference for you while you're doing your homework this week. Okay. All right, let's put grammar away. I'm done with that. Enough to make your head spin around. All right, so I checked earlier this morning when I woke up. I did not see your story yet. Were you able to finish that, or are you still working on it?
Yes, I was.
Oh, cool. So yay, because I've been wanting to see how that turned out. Oh, both of you guys turned it in this morning. Okay, cool. Oh, it was turned in yesterday. I just didn't see it yet. Okay. So would you, let's see, let me pull it up here. I know you can't see it on my screen, but do you feel like you want to read it to me? I think that would be cool if you could read it to me.
Sure.
Okay, hold on. Before you start, let me find it here. Got it. Uh-oh, I don't see it on here. I see your checklist and okay, let me share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. So I got your checklist. I'm wondering what this Google Docs sign-in thing is. Is that, let me see if,
Oh,
oh, it did pull up. Okay. Or wait, is this it? Oh yeah, this is it.
yeah.
I don't know why it came through that way.
Neither do I. I think I saw that when I turned it in, and then when I pressed it, it just took me straight to the actual story, so I didn't think about it.
Okay, that's okay. It worked. I don't know why it did that, but that's okay as long as it's here. So just at first glance, I see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let me look at your checklist really quick to see where we're at on that. There's 6 dress up. So you must have underlined.
Oh yeah, I forgot to bold the keywords instead of underline them instead of bold them.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that what happened though? Because you have sitting, but in your last sentence, you have ape and highway.
Oh, I just completely forgot to do the top one then. I think.
Okay, so the first, okay, so if I don't count those first and last sentences, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for some reason you have way too many words underlined. I'm not sure what happened there. So really
For the
there should only
last
be 6.
for the last sentence, the ape and highway one, I meant to bold them because
Yeah.
those two were the key words from the topic sentence.
In fact, I see you on there right now. How about you just fix that really quick for me? And then, but I was looking ahead at the other sentences, the other paragraphs, and I see bold, but then I see too many underlined there too. So just go paragraph by paragraph and then probably like, and you can probably see my cursor too when I put it down there, but you can take off the underline for sitting, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got ape down here. You can bold that and take off the underline. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you've got your ly silently, who, which. You used whose, very good. Strong verb is curious. That's a good one. Because, and then when for your Asia one.
Oh, sitting was my verb.
Okay, good. Well, curious works. You got that one underlined. That's a good strong verb. Or is that an adjective, quality adjective?
Adjective.
Mm.
Would thinking work?
Well, actually, I hate to tell you this, that's a banned word.
That's a banned word. Yeah. All right.
So no, that wouldn't work. But if you come up with a different one for thinking, that could be a strong verb. curious. Yeah, curious is an adjective, that's right. Okay, so yeah, what's another word you could put there?
Um,
What's another word for thinking?
Wondering.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So then
All
that could be
right.
my verb.
Yeah, except for, ing words are not the best strong verbs because they could act as other parts of speech. Remember how we talked about that before? It could be so I wonder if, let me see if you have anything else in there. Um let's see. Because you got driving in there too.
Watched.
Yeah, for what part?
The verb.
And where would you put watched?
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, you have it there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work. And then you got your adjective curious and you got your ly adverb. And you started one with since, so you really don't need. Oh, is that your, hold on, your
That's the
prepositional.
prepositional opener.
Ah, okay. So right here in front of since, I want you to use a bracket and put
Oh, right. I
2.
forgot to do
Yeah.
that.
Put the number 2 inside a bracket right there. There you go. Okay, now we got it. Now it makes sense. So you probably, that's why you have extras down here too. Ah, okay. Now it's making sense. Okay. So you've got landed here and startled here. Those are both verbs.
I think
Or startled, is startled an adjective? I don't think
I
it is.
think that's what I was thinking it was.
Startled is actually a verb.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you could add and hold on, you can add an adjective in front of that as a quality adjective. And it doesn't have to be a, let's see. Uh, what's a good quality adjective? Let's see. Oh, an adjective, yeah, not there. It wouldn't go there. It would go like in
Oh,
front.
speechless.
Okay, there you go. That'll work. And then you've got new and car. Okay. And we've talked about this before, but when you do the topic clincher, if you reflect, that will give it more style. So how about like an idea would be instead of car, you could use vehicle down here or something different, but it reflects the same word.
All right.
Maybe use vehicle. And then maybe instead of new, you could put understood, or something that's a synonym for new. I mean, it's okay to repeat, but I'm just trying to help you take it up a notch and try to give it more style. There you go. That's a good one.
Would acknowledged work there?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I see. As to, yeah. Maybe understood. Daryl understood nothing as to what the ape might do. That kind of works better than like
Yeah.
the other one. And then how about pavement instead of road down here? Or the first one? There you go. Okay. And then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For some reason there's, oh, okay. No, I got it. So for the, you know what? Take off the underline for your prepositional openers like this one. Just put the 2 there. Because so this is why this program is like this. So as I'm correcting this and checking for things, I could just count those underlined words and know there's 6. I think that's what's throwing me off. There you go. Okay. Good. All right, we're there. Okay, go ahead and read it. And did you check for all your banned words or did you forget to do that?
I think I forgot to do that.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll see if there's any in there. And then I think that, I mean, just skimming, I haven't really read it, but I think that's the only one that stood out to me. So we'll see, but go for it. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and read that.
All right. There was an ape sitting on a tree over a highway. Since the ape had nothing to do, he just sat there silently and watched the cars. He sat there, almost looking like a statue, just wondering about how humans are and how they act with friends and how they can drive. The ape, whose name was Bungo, was curious about driving because he'd seen so many cars that day. When he saw a special car, he knew just what to do. The ape jumped down to the highway to test his luck with the car. Bungo landed on the car, and he was very determined to do what he knew he had to do. I think I might take do off there just because it sounds better.
Yeah, I agree.
The guy in the car was nothing less than startled. The guy's name was Daryl. Daryl cautiously pulled over and inspected his car. On top of his car sat Bungo, smiling at Daryl because he wanted something. Daryl, who was speechless at this point, decided he might as well let the ape he met not even a full minute ago drive. While they were getting into the vehicle, Bungo winked at Daryl, and Daryl understood nothing as to what this ape might do. Daryl was acting kind of fatherly to Bungo, telling him 10 and 2 and to keep his eyes on the road. Bungo understood what Daryl was saying, but he was not listening to him. Unlike Bungo, Daryl started to freak out. Because Daryl was in the passenger seat, there was nothing he could do to make sure he was safe while Bungo was at the wheel. Bungo went pedal to the metal, which terrified Daryl, and his soul practically left his body.
Oh my gosh.
He decided to do a trick and do a flip over a cliff, and Bungo wore a menacing smile.
Oh.
He landed perfectly, with Daryl's hands being glued to the armrest. The pavement was covered in tire marks, and Daryl would never step foot near the street again.
That's good. I love it. That's awesome. Good job. And you did great plugging in all of those dress up words. I did find a bunch of banned words in your first paragraph because you used see and saw a bunch of times. So, well, I'm saying a bunch, maybe like 2 or 3 times, but so that'll be something I want you to work on. In fact, I'll just give it back to you. Can I do that? Let me see. Let me go back to this. It's here. I'll just return it to you and you just do that trick I showed you where you check for your banned words. Fix that. And then you said something about do, you were going to fix that. So yeah, there's just a couple things that'll be really easy to do. Yeah, but you can do that later after class, but because I do want to have time to go into the lesson. Okay, Jasper. You can finish that later. Okay.
I think seen counts as a banned word, right? Because it's just with an N. All right, I put inspected for that one.
Okay. Okay, perfect. In fact, that could actually be a strong verb too, but anyway, but we do need to go on because you did a great job though. I really like the theme of your story, the plot, and it was funny, and I liked your little phrases like pedal to the metal, and that was pretty good. All right. Do you remember last week if we talked about did we go into detail about the prepositional opener? I mean, I see that you used it. We went over this sheet, right? I couldn't remember from last week, but we talked about this one, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. And you did a great job using that in your story because that's a new thing on your checklist now. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about, we're moving on to the next unit. And unfortunately, for you, probably, it's no longer creative writing. It's going to be back to report type writing and, factual writing of information, but it's still going to be good for you. Have you ever written a research paper before, Jasper?
I think in 5th grade, probably in middle school, but I don't remember ones like that.
Could have been like, I'm thinking 5th grade I think that's the grade that you do missions, maybe. Do you remember writing or doing a project about missions?
I did a state for that one.
Okay. So yeah, that would be a research paper where you're looking online and maybe you looked at some books in the library. I'm not sure what kind of research you did, but taking information basically and summarizing it into a report. So it sounds like you've done that before. And what year are you in high school?
10th.
10th. Okay. So yeah, I wonder, and have you done any research papers that you can think of in high school yet or not yet? It's mostly junior high.
I don't think so.
Okay. And that's okay. I know in traditional school settings you do often, especially in 10th grade, they start doing research.
I did do research papers in 6th grade. We had to do it on like Egyptian stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
I hated those things so much.
I know.
It was like this packet, and you had to like read all of it, and it was like, make sure you have 5 paragraphs with a whole bunch of sentences each about this like 3-sentence paragraph.
Well, hopefully I'm going to teach you a skill. And because I don't know one person that loves research papers. I don't. I really don't like research papers, but it's daunting. You've got all this information, and then you got to figure out how do I decide what to write about and how do I write about it? So I'm hoping for you and Melina both, because probably next year in 11th and even especially 12th grade, there's going to be a time for you to actually really work deep into a research paper, because that's preparing you for college. If you go that route, lots of research in college. And this is a skill that I think is going to help you kind of make it doable. So I'm going to show you, and you don't have to necessarily write this down, but let me go to my page here. Hold on just a second. All right. This is unit 6. Actually, go ahead and write this down. This might be good for you to have in your notes. So go ahead and get out a clean piece of paper. I think on that. This is March 3rd, 2023. And let's just call it class notes. think it would be good because I'm not going to get very far. We spent too much time on earlier, but that's okay because I'm going to kind of chip away at this. And we'll just call it, I'll wait till you get all that set up, but we'll just call this Unit 6 Research. Okay, when you're doing research, obviously it has the prefix re, which means again. So you're searching again. So basically you're searching again and again for information about a subject. So when you research, what is something you do when you research? How do you research, by the way?
Like me personally?
Yeah, or anybody.
Most of the time I go to Google,
Mm-hmm.
but if that's not available, then I'll look through what's given to me and then I'll try to find a book about it.
Okay. And that's a good point because you really want to have multiple sources, right? So go ahead and put multiple sources here. Why would it be a good idea? Let's say you're going to do research on the Constitution, for example. Why would it be a good idea to have multiple sources when you're researching something?
Because you can, if one thing says something and another, or like if one thing is missing something and the other has it, then you won't be stuck not knowing what that one thing is. And you
Okay.
and like compare what they both say.
Okay. Let's put that. Let's put compare facts. That's a good reason. And you're checking facts, right? You're comparing them. Sometimes, depending on what the subject is, even with the Constitution, you have different opinions of what the interpretation is, right? So you don't want to get stuck on just one opinion of a subject. You want to make sure to explore all opinions. And maybe even there's different styles. Of writing and different reading levels. I'm going to put and reading levels here. So some of them might be more of a college level type research where you come across, even on Google, where you come across these academic journals, or if they're, I think of the word when they're journals that have to do with law, like, there's a word and I'm totally blanking on it, but basically legal terminology and stuff, you've got, that takes it at a different level. Or if you're looking at more of a college level research paper as a source. So different reading levels that you can find. And then obviously just finding information in general, you want to look in different places. So Googling is really the most common now, that's the easiest. But even when you Google something, you're going to get all kinds of sources, and it's hard to determine what's credible and what's not credible. Like a lot of times, I don't know if you've noticed, if you research something on Google, a lot of times the first thing that pops up is Wikipedia. And it sounds factual. It sounds like it's legit, but Wikipedia can be altered. And so that is actually not as, solid, reliable source. So we have to be careful about that. If you have, back old school, the encyclopedias, like the actual encyclopedias, that would be a lot more reliable than Wikipedia. But you have to discern, and I'm going to help you with that as you go through this part of the class. How do I tell what's credible and what's not credible online? Because that's probably the biggest challenge that we have today. Everything's at our fingertips. And I'm sure you've seen it, even with all the controversial stuff going on right now with voting, election integrity and all that kind of stuff. You hear both sides, and some people report information as factual that really isn't. And how do you tell? So I actually feel for you and Melina at your age going into research. It's a lot harder now than it was when I was doing research, where we had books. We could actually look at a reliable author and have a book to look through. However, it was tedious. It took forever to flip through a book to find what we were looking for. So, all right. So let's talk about different types of sources. So we have, obviously we have books, which you probably won't be using much of. Internet is the big one. But within internet, there's databases. And a lot of times those databases are academic periodicals. Periodicals is another word for magazines or articles. And they, have you ever heard of LexisNexis before?
I don't think so.
It's LexisNexis. And that is actually a paid database, so you don't have to sign up for that. But there's different levels of databases where you can find information on the internet. Obviously, I'm going to show you the free way, because we got to figure out how to use that as well. How do we navigate through stuff online to find the truth? We'll be talking about that a lot. You could do like interviewing if you're doing a report about the Holocaust. You might find someone who actually survived the Holocaust, or a relative of someone who survived the Holocaust. That would be a source that you can use. Or videos. Sometimes documentaries. Even documentaries, though, you got to be careful of. There's so many controversial things right now in this like just in the last few years. I mean, I know your mom, and I know where she's at with all the conspiracy stuff, and I think we're on the same page because I've shared some stuff with her before, and I think Melina's mom too. Just with what's going on in politics is just crazy. It is absolutely crazy what's going on in politics and how these leaders are making these decisions. And anyway, there's a lot of documentaries out there that are considered, conspiracy. And a lot of times conspiracists are known as wackos or something, because they're thinking way outside the box. And I'm somewhere in the middle of all that. But aside from that, even with documentaries, we have to be careful. You have to look into like who made the documentary, where did they get their resources? Can you take what you learn from a documentary and find it yourself? Those are little tricks you can do to justify using that as a source. All right. Well, we didn't get very far into the next unit. So next week, we'll spend more time on this. I might even skip grammar for next week so we can get deep into this, but this is just super, super overview of what research is and what we use for research and how to determine what's real and not real. And then this next unit, we're gonna learn about chimpanzees, which are very interesting animals. And so there's going to be, what we're going to take is multiple resources that I'm going to give you. So this is the kind of the overview of the next few weeks. We're going to look at how do we pull facts out of information like we did before with perfume ingredients, similar to that, but this is even bigger than that. So we're going to now do more of a research on something specific and try to find our own topics. So like the perfume ingredients, I gave you the topics. Now I'm giving you only the subject. The subject is chimpanzees. And then I'm giving you sources, but you have to find the topics. So that's just a little overview. We'll get deep into it next week. So for this week, just focus on your grammar and then fix those little things we talked about in your story about the ape and the driver. And that was a good one. I like it. All right, Jasper. I hate to end so abruptly, but we're out of time. So anyway, have a good week and I'll see you next time.
All right.